Okay, everybody. Alrighty, looks like we are now live. Let me kill off the sound here before. Okay, everybody. Yeah, let's see. I have to kill off the sound, otherwise I'll get a. It gives me the stream because that's going out on YouTube, so as well. So welcome everybody to our March meeting. So a March indoor meeting. So I see we have several people on the Zoom. Thanks for joining via the Zoom. So it's good to actually be again meeting. Hey, this is 2 times in a row we got to meet in person. So I think we're on a roll after pretty much an 18-month hiatus. So welcome everybody to our meeting. A couple things. I know my video is I'm kind of moving around on my video. Maybe I'll try to sit down so I won't be giving everybody nausea here, but from me moving around so much. But welcome to the March indoor meeting of the Strand Astronomers. So promoting the astronomy in the greater Myrtle Beach area. So thanks to everybody that's here in the room, and thanks to everybody that's joining on the Zoom. A couple of things before we get started, kind of administratively. So of course, I'll remind everybody that dues are due. And that so if you haven't paid your dues for this year, please pay your dues. It does help keep our club in operations. I remind everybody that what you get for that, of course, is you'll become a member of the Astronomical League and get a copy of the reflector. So you also are eligible for discounts on Sky and Telescope magazine. So if anybody has any questions about how to get the discount, just let one of us know, one of the officers know, and we'll be glad to let you know how to do that. So I do recommend Sky and Telescope. It's a good magazine, and it's owned by the AAS, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to amateur and professional astronomy. So in terms of the weather hasn't been very cooperative this month in general for our observing. Our last observing session, of course, in the end of February, got rained out or clouded out. I know it broke for just in a couple areas. I know it broke for just a little bit, but unfortunately it looked like it kind of clouded back over. So it wasn't really a good time to drive all the way to Hampton Plantation. So we'll just have to kind of look at that. I did talk, we do have dates at Hampton Plantation scheduled for, once a month for observing. I did talk to Hampton Plantation about the fact of maybe trying to schedule some alternate dates. Right, like if the dates we all currently have now are once a month on a Saturday for observing, but we thought maybe we could put a Friday night in there or have alternate dates in case we miss it by one day, like we have a couple of times. So I see some nodding heads. So I'll try to figure out with Hampton Plantation what works for them, and we'll figure out if we can do some alternative dates. I would ask a question. You don't have to tell me right now. If people are interested, but either post somewhere, one of the electronic means, if you'd be interested in any alternative dates that are not on a Friday or Saturday. So like maybe a Thursday night. I don't know whether Hampton Plantation would go for that, but just let me know if anybody would be interested in that. I know it's kind of hard for some people to make that. And in terms of public outreach, we had a really successful night at Carolina Forest Elementary. Last week, Denise Wright was there. They also had the planetarium owned by CCU. They have a portable planetarium that was out there at Carolina Forest Elementary, and it was a pretty big success. We also got lucky on the weather front for one day. On Saturday, we were out at Brook Green Gardens for the Read Across America Day. Thank Tim Kelly for bringing his telescope out, and Gerald Drake for coming out and helping out. We had a number of kids come by, and we had a really active day on the sun. There was a really great prominence that popped up midday, and so it was actually a really kind of neat view. So I recommend those. If you've never done any of these public observing events, they're a lot of fun. We're going to be out at Brook Green Gardens again in April 23rd, I believe, if that's a Saturday, for Earth Day. Again, doing some solar observing. Even if you don't have a solar telescope or you don't have any equipment you want to bring, I encourage you to come out and help out. So just let us know if you're interested in helping out there. And you don't have to do it today, but just before the event, and we'll get your name on the list so you don't have to pay to get in. We also continue in our struggle to have a observing session at Play Card Environmental Education Center in Western Horry County. For those of you who don't know, this is owned by Horry County Schools, and they're very active in working with a lot of school groups, and they do have several telescopes, and they wanted us to come out there, and we're looking at potentially being able to access that for another dark sky site and do some events. We've just canceled our second or third scheduled event there just because of weather. We're working on scheduling that. I think they're going to try for a Thursday night this time. So if anybody can join, if anybody can help out, Gerald Drake is coordinating that. If anybody can help out, just let us know once we post the updated times. It'd be great. That the whole idea there is going to be that we'll do the public program, and then what we will do is after the public leaves, anyone who wants to stay out and observe can stay out and observe. Again, this is located in Western Horry County, so it's a little bit different for those of you that kind of live in the northern part of the Strand. It's probably a little bit closer than going to Hampton Plantation. For us to live in the southern part of the Strand, Hampton Plantation is probably a little closer, but but we're trying to ideally work with that. So would appreciate any help on that. And again, Gerald will be posting the information about that. The other thing I have to just bring up, I guess, is that the website is back up and running. I'm sorry it took so long to get it running. I ended up just going back and just taking a much simpler approach to fixing it and putting some basic information on there. So it is up. The events are all posted there, including like directions to this building we're in now. There's also a banner at the top, you may notice, that gets updated with the current status. So like if we have an observing session planned, what I'll do is I will update that on the day of the event, let you know whether that's going on or whether it's not going on. So all you have to do is go to gsastro.org, and you will see, you will get the information on that, right? So I will be adding some more features to the website here over the next month or so. So including the ability to pay your dues online, yay, as well as some more informational resources. So, it's, I hope everybody enjoys the new simplified layout. It's probably good layout's probably gonna stay pretty simple because it's just easier to maintain, and just, I'm no web genius, right? So that is that's sort of the update on much of the business items. Does anybody have anything they want to talk about or bring up? And we talked about the upcoming public outreach events, and we talked about observing. We talked about we didn't talk about meetings, but since people are here at the meeting, they know how that works. We'll continue to meet for the first half of the year on the second Thursday of the month, here at Coastal Carolina. Probably be the same room, simply because this room is available at this time slot. Although it's pretty quiet on campus right now because it's spring break. Ordinarily, a lot of these other rooms are booked at night for classes and things. So this one's not. So hopefully eventually we'll grow out of this room, have to seek a bigger room, but well, that'll be a good thing to have to deal with when it happens. Does anybody have anything else they want to discuss or questions or anything before we get started? Thoughts, interesting things coming up? Tom, do you want to say a couple things about, I guess, Dark Sky Week?
Well, as I was talking before everybody got on there online, International Dark Sky Association is sponsoring Dark Sky Week, April 22nd through the 30th. I did put a post on their Facebook page for that, so people can go and find out things that you can do to help try to promote like the dark skies and help to try to fight light pollution. I myself and like I said, Dimitri Papadopoulos, we're working with our local representatives and council members to try to get new ordinance in the area. Does anybody know Kelly Beatty or heard of him? He's with Sky and Telescope. He also, he's with the International Dark Sky. He gave a great presentation back in January with us. And as Ian, you know, we got our dark site down here at Mullet Hall. It's not so dark. And we got new homes coming up. So that's why I've got more involved with it, trying to get our local representatives to try to look at getting some ordinance, which is hard. So that's all I got to say. If you got anybody who wants to get involved with International Dark Sky Association, it's a great organization, and see what you can do maybe in your area. As we know, Myrtle Beach has a lot of light pollution there. That's it. And good evening.
All right, thanks, Tom. Does anybody have anything else they want to bring up or discuss before we start our main song and dance?
I'll try to get involved in that again.
Okay.
Did we mention, hi, everybody, I came in late. Did we mention Earth Day at Brook Green already? We may
Yes,
have.
we talked about all that. So
Okay, I'm sorry for attending late. And I'm heading to National Science Teaching Association. I'll be talking about NASA missions and helping students about STEM careers. So that'll be the end of the month. So yeah, so thanks. Sorry I popped in late. Thanks.
okay. Well, if no one has anything else they want to talk about, we'll go to our featured program here. So let me just try to switch over here. So if everybody will just give me a moment. Going to move you off the main screen here. And everybody will just bear with me for 1 second here while I make the audiovisual tweaks in the room. And hopefully everybody should see the presentation. I'm going to leave the videos off the main screen that we're sharing. So if anybody wants to, anybody wants to see the videos, you can probably arrange that on your own screen. But for the people on the YouTube, they can just, in the recording, they can just see the thing. So what I wanted to talk about here, and let me, sorry, turn off the ad that Microsoft likes to put in PowerPoint these days. We're here to talk about astronomical sketching, right? So it's actually pretty easy to do. You know, I hear a lot of people talk about, ooh, I don't know how to do it, I don't know how to do it. And I always tell them that I can do it, and I've been doing it for many years, that anybody can do it. Because I may be a quasi decent astronomer, but I'm a terrible artist. So I don't have any, you know, I've been a great artist except for one thing, and that's that I have no talent. So, and if I can do, if that means if I can do it, anybody can do it. So we'll go ahead and launch here into the, so I would ask, the first thing I'd say is the classic question, you know, do you want to travel to exotic places, have exciting career options, meet interesting people, gain fame and wealth as an artist? Well, I don't know anything about all that, so we'll talk about astronomical sketching. So I doubt it's going to bring anybody fame or wealth or you know, I'll give you an opportunity to travel or get you into good job offers. But it is a lot of fun. And it is very satisfying, right? Well, I do imaging, and astroimaging is fun. I know a lot of you do imaging, and that's great. A lot of good technology in that. There's still something really satisfying and calming about doing astronomical sketching, right? So, and again, it's really not hard to do. If you're working on any of the Astronomical League Awards, you will see that most of them have a requirement to do sketching, and they usually talk about how it's not hard to do that. And I'm sorry for the people that are watching my face on video, and I keep turning away because I'm also talking to the room. So since this is a hybrid meeting, so just know it's not that I'm not really paying attention to the people online. I'm trying to split my attention between everybody. So it's actually really satisfying, and you can build up nice little sketchbooks. I've got one here I just get the little binders or the little slipcover sheets that you can slip those pieces of paper into, and you'll build up as you do these awards. You'll build up all these notebooks. This one is for the Messier Club, and it's about half the sketches. I usually kind of go nuts, and I actually print a picture of the real object, which you may be able to see here for those of you online, and then I have my sketch. And I put it in a binder. Like I said, this is about half of the Messier Club. I probably have about 1,000 sketches overall that I've done over the years. I pass that around the room. Let's kind of talk about how to do that. So first things first, why do you do it? It's a great way to capture what you see. It sounds trite, but it actually makes you a better observer, right? I have friends who are very good observers and are very detailed observers. And they like to say that a lot of people who go out with their telescopes are astrotourists. Because they'll look at an object, they'll look at an object, oh, that's cool, and they'll jump to another object. You'd be surprised when you just glance at something. You'd be surprised that you can miss a lot of details. So a lot of people who are detailed observers, I don't want to say good observers, I say details observers, will go out and they may look at 2 or 3 or less objects over a whole night and study the details. Well, I'm not that detailed. But if you try to draw what you're seeing, you believe it or not, you will see, when you take the time to do that, you'll see a lot more details than you would without it. And it makes you a much better observer. So that's another good reason to do it, right? And it's not hard. You don't have to be an artist. So, points for anybody that can recognize all the pictures of these particular artists. You don't have to have any special talent to do astronomical sketching, right? It's not a contest. You'd be surprised how easy it is. But we're going to talk about the method I use or the way I do it. I'll be blatantly honest with everybody. There are a lot of formal methods for learning how to do sketching and learn how to do astronomical sketching. I wasn't aware of any of those and didn't follow any of those. This is just the way I do it. Certainly not the only way. And there are other ways. There are, all these different schools of thought on sketching. So if you want to find one of those and follow one of those, it makes more sense to you, great. This is just what I do. So this is sort of like, think of this as the idiot's guide to sketching, because, I'm pretty much an artistic idiot. So again, if I can do it, you can, right? So there's kind of a really simple strategy that I follow when I do this. The first is you want to maximize your time at the eyepiece, right? I mean, we especially here, well, tonight we got another bad weather night. We had to cancel another event tomorrow. We've canceled a lot of our observing sessions due to bad weather, right? So you want to, when you have a good night, you want to maximize your time, right? Which means having everything handy, right? And if you prepare that way, it makes a huge difference. So a couple of things I have that I do is I find some really useful tools is one, I make lists, okay? And I put them in this little plastic binder of objects. I usually order them by right ascension. So that way it kind of gives you the time of year that they're up, right? And then when there's a couple of different observing clubs, the Astronomical League observing certificate clubs that I have at any one time in here. And so I can go out and I can say, okay, so I want to work on, here's the 2 in the view observing list, which is objects where you get 2 objects in one eyepiece. Field of view, and you can see I've got a whole set of check marks and everything. So what I can do, and basically information on them, like the right ascension, the deck, and the name. And so then I can just check them off as I do them, as I sketch them out in the field, right? And then, when I come back home, I'll reprint the list and take off the ones that I completed, right? So that's handy because it lets you kind of, you're like set to go. The other thing I have, and I think it's worth it, is one of these plastic clipboard things, right? It's got a clipboard on the top and it's got the paper storage inside. And this is really super convenient for doing sketching because you can balance it on your lap and you have something firm to write on. Plus, what you can do is you can pull one of the pieces of paper out. Pull one of them out. All you do is clip it on there. Then you can do your little sketch. And I print out some pre-made sketch forms. You find tons of these on the net. Well, you can make your own. I just made one in Word and I print it out. I have a nice big area where you can sketch in and a bunch of information. I usually don't fill out all the information while I'm out in the field, especially because it's late at night. I'm tired. I usually will scratch some of that in pencil down here at the bottom and then go back and fill it out the next day. But the handy part about having this plastic thing is there's a lot of dew out here. We live in the Southeast, right? Dew is the name of the game. So in just the time you're sketching, these papers will get kind of damp. So that's the beauty is when you're done, you just take it. I just put it at the bottom of the pile here and I take another one off the top and do that. And you believe it or not, it makes it so much simpler to do, right? So very handy.
Where do you buy those?
I get them off Office Depot, Staples, Amazon, yeah, any place will have them. So I just, and you want to capture what you see on the paper. And then again, ID the sketch, write something to ID it, right? And then you can fill in a lot of the other details. Like I'll just write maybe the eyepiece that I used. And then later on, I have a table where I can go look at the power and capture all the information, the detail information, right? And then move on to the next object, right? And the thing is, the trick is the next day when you wake up, you can touch up the sketches, right? Because you'd be surprised at 2 o'clock in the morning when you've been up all day that, you start getting a little foggy, at least I do. And then fill in all the other information, right? So that's kind of important, right? So, and that's really how it works, right? In terms of equipment, the beauty is that's the cheapest thing you'll ever do related to astronomy. It literally costs pennies. So I'll tell you, it's amazing, compared to everything else in astronomy, it's cheap. The supplies cost virtually nothing, right? So the key items, what you're going to need is the clipboard is probably the most expensive thing. But what you're going to want is you're going to want blending stumps. And for those of you that don't know anything about sketching, these are tightly rolled pieces of paper. They kind of look like this. For those of you trying close to one of the camera, I have some for the people in the room. You can grab a seat, so you can take one. You also want soft lead pencils, as soft lead as you can get. So I use these. These are 9Bs. These are the softest ones you can get, right? It turns out you never touch these to the paper. You'll use the blending stumps to transfer them. We'll talk about that. I also recommend an eraser because I never get things right the first time, right? And then, and again, these blending stumps you can go to artist supply store and you get both the soft lead pencils and blending stumps for virtually nothing. Like a Jerry's Artorama, or probably get them at a Michael's or someplace like that, or you can get them off Amazon. The next thing you want is artist pens. And I use these made by Micron. Again, you get them at art supply stores, and you want them as small as possible. This is a 0.005. So it's got like an extremely, I'm trying to get so people can see it, it's extremely fine point on it. These are for drawing stars. We can get 0.01s, but I like the 0.005s. Get the smallest ones you can get because you can always make something bigger, but you can't take a big pen and make a small dot, right? So, and then the clipboard, which you already looked at. And really, that's it, right? That's really what you need, right? So don't go nuts on the quantities. I'll tell you that right now. You can see, the people in the room can see I've got a bag of blending stumps here because I bought, a pack of blending stumps. And then I've got a whole thing here filled with blending stumps. And I've been using those for about 20 years, and I still have 96% of what I started with. So if they say, oh, I need to get a big pack, or I need to get a bunch of different sizes, you don't. I mean, literally 1 or 2 will last you. Same thing with these soft lead pencils. You say, oh, it's soft lead, it won't last very long. Believe me, I got a bunch of them because they last. Same thing with the artist pens. I still think I'm on all my original artist pens. You know, you're not doing that much, right? So don't go nuts on the quantities. So that's just an important thing. As far as paper, I mean, technically, they make sketch paper. This is an example of a sketch pad and paper. I'll pass it around there so you can feel it. For optimum transfer, we're not artists. You don't need that. Frankly, I use acid-free copier paper, right? And the only reason you want acid-free is so it doesn't turn yellow, right? But you don't really need special sketch paper. You can get a sketchbook if you want. You know, that's fine, but you don't really need it, right? Again, I just use copier paper that's acid-free. That's what I've always used, right? But definitely pre-print your sketch forms. And here's a picture of mine. I know I held one up, but this is also right here on the presentation. Again, I picked the information I wanted to keep. There's nothing special about this particular format, other than I wanted a fairly large area to sketch in. And then I wanted to capture information like RA and DEC and a little bit about the object, the date, the time, the telescope, the eyepiece, the power, you know, the scene, the transparency, you know, and how dark the sky was, right? And then I got a section for notes, for any kind of notes. Definitely take notes if you see anything interesting or anything really exciting or things you find really cool. Definitely take notes. It's fun to go back afterwards and look at that, right? So it still says Raleigh Astronomy Club. I guess I need to update that. So that's that's the old group I used to belong to. So it still do. So again, we use these soft lead pencils and erasers, right? So the thing about these is you want to prefer the softest lead you can get, which are the 9Bs, right? And the thing is, these are not for drawing stars. These are for drawing like nebulosity and things like that, and like galaxies and things like that, right? You can use lead sticks. They make sticks without the pencil covering. I don't like them as much because they're messier. And that's not meant to be some kind of clever pun on Messier objects, but they are messier. So I just prefer the pencils, especially when it's a little damp out there and you're out late at night and you want to be careful about what you're handling. So it's just much easier to kind of grab a pencil like this, you know? So just much easier, right? And you definitely want a medium soft eraser, not something too hard. Again, get all the stuff at like a Michael's or a artist supply store. You know, like my little Faber-Castell eraser. Again, this is probably, I had this for almost 20 years. You don't go through very much of this stuff. So it's surprising how long it will all last. So, and of course the blending stumps. So now these are just, again, these are just the tightly rolled paper sticks. That's what they are. You know, sometimes they make things to sharpen them, to get a little bit of a point on if they get dull, but really that's just sandpaper. Okay. You know, so basically if you've got a piece of sandpaper, you can sharpen these sticks. And again, you'd be surprised how long they last. What are these blending stumps used for? Well, we talked about these pencils, right? The soft lead. You never use these to draw on your sketch, right? Not for astronomical objects anyway. Like if you're going to draw a nebulosity, what you do is you actually take a blending stump and you just rub your soft lead on the blending stump. And then you use the blending stump to draw on the paper. And it draws these really nice, it kind of just makes this nice, you know, gauzy image on the paper, right? So if you wanted a little darker, you just rub it a little bit more, right? But you can actually do quite a bit with the nebulosity. I have some pencils for everybody too, so we can practice. Some paper. Sorry, I can't let everybody practice. I can't give everybody blending stumps here, but basically this is this technique you use. You just basically rub the pencil so you get some lead. You don't have to get a ton of lead on the end, and then you can just go draw on the paper for all your nebulosity. So again, you never use the soft lead pencils for your sketching, right? It's tempting, but it doesn't give you good results, right? It won't look right. even for something that's fairly bright, like a fairly bright nebula, it just won't look right if you use the pencil. If you just use the blending stump and go over it multiple times, if it needs to be bright, and it actually does a really nice job. It's one of the secrets to actually getting it to work, right? Again, you can just sharpen it with sandpaper. You don't have to buy a special sharpener. I actually have a special sharpener. Again, I went nuts when I first did this. And you can see some strips of sandpaper on here. So and again, you can see how long this one's lasted. I've used like 2 strips over the last 20 years. So again, you don't have to go nuts with any of that kind of stuff, right? Sorry, wrong mouse. And again, the artist pens, here's a close-up of those. These are what you do draw for making stars, right? So, so it's different than the soft lead. So I just get black artist pens. They're, again, you can get them pretty much anywhere, right? You can use pencils if you want. That's the one time you can touch pencil to paper, but it's just not as sharp. I think you'll be a lot happier when you make stars with this because they are very, very sharp. And it just looks very, very good, right? So I think that's what you'll be happiest with, right? Again, get the smallest size. You can always, for a brighter star, you just want to make it bigger. You can just go in little circles and make it bigger. But again, for a bigger pen, it's really hard to get a really small point out of a bigger pen, right? Especially again at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, it's not going to be very easy. Again, you can use the pencil if you want, but I recommend going for the artist pen, right? Again, the clipboard, I talked about it. I guess I got a little ahead of myself. Here's my clipboard again, took a few pictures of it. And I really like the ones like this one. They have the little pocket in the bottom where you can put your pens, or in this case, I put a blending stump and a pencil and an artist pen. I just put them all right here at the bottom, right? It's just really convenient at the eyepiece because after you finish drawing, you can put everything in here, and then you can, just use your telescope to move to a new object, and then pick up your clipboard. I just set down by the leg and I just pick up, and it's all right there. And so you're not hunting around for your pens, right? So again, it's just a convenience thing, but it really makes a big difference. Again, at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, when you're a little fuzzy. So it's not required, but you will be glad you got it. These are not expensive, and this is a great astronomical accessory. I kind of rate that like buying an observing chair. I delayed buying an observing chair for a long time. Everybody said, "Boy, you won't regret it." And I just basically brought a little regular chair out there. When I finally got an observing chair that I could adjust the height, I was just so glad I did, right? So this is the same, this falls in the same sort of category, except you won't pay nearly as much for it as you will an observing chair. The best part, of course, is keeping them dry, because on a very humid day, they get really, really dry. I mean, they get really, really wet. And so it's nice just being able to shuffle them in and out, and only pull them out when you're going to draw. And then putting them in at the bottom, right? So it really keeps you from having to dry them out for a couple of days before you write on them. And again, the surface is nice for the lead transfer. So getting started. How do you get started? You have all the tools. The best practice is by doing, which is kind of why I brought some tools for everybody here in the room. So you pick a target. Doesn't matter. I mean, if you want to start simple, you pick a double star. It's not hard to draw a double star, right? And then you want to select the right magnification, right? You don't want the object too big or too small, right? So, I mean, you kind of play that by ear, right? Like you don't want something that's little tiny in the eyepiece, but then again, you don't want to have to pan around the object. I think if you do it that way, you may say, well, I'll see more detail if I just have high magnification, I pan around the object. It's going to be a lot harder to draw. I mean, do it if you want, but ideally you want it, maybe half filling the eyepiece, right? So that's just kind of a rule of thumb, but it just makes it a little bit easier to do, right? Again, the thing about it is don't use the pencils. Transfer the lead to the blending stumps. And use the blending stumps to put lead on paper. That would be probably the biggest piece of advice I would give everybody. It seems like it's really easy to say, oh, I'm just going to use the lead. It's just to be easy and I'm tired. You will not be happy with the result. if you don't use the blending stumps, because it just gives such a much better effect in the sketching for the nebulosity or the galaxies or anything that's, or even like you're doing a globular cluster where it's so dense in the center, you can kind of just, spread that lead around the stars that you've got dotted in there, and it just looks 100% better. So for stars, a lot of times I will start with the stars because most everything, unless it's just like a galaxy, but even if you're doing something like the Orion Nebula, I'll start with the stars, because then after you draw in the pattern of the stars, you can then draw in the nebulosity based on the stars, right? So like if you're doing something like the Orion Nebula, that would be, that's how I would start doing it, right? Again, use the pens. And the trick is you're kind of drawing a negative image. So what's light is dark, right? So the brighter the star, the larger the dot, right? But use a light touch. So like for the faintest stars, I mean, you just want to do a fleeting touch of that pen to the paper, right? For the faintest stars. And then just as the stars look brighter and brighter, put more and more of a dot, right? And you'll get a feel for this over time, right? But again, for the stuff that's like the faint ones that are hard to see, just a fleeting touch. I don't mean like put it down like that. I mean, just sort of like just tap the paper, right? For the dimmest stars, and then work your way up. And for the brightest ones, you spend a little time circling them in, right? So that works just fine. The other one thing people think that you got to try to do is get a perfect capture. If you want a perfect capture, then maybe astro imaging is for you. But if there's a lot of background stars, I mean, there may be hundreds of stars. You want to capture just enough to give a good sense. You don't need every star, right? You're not trying to make a perfect capture. You want to be able to look at the image and go, yeah, that kind of looks like it, right? So you want to capture maybe some of the brighter stars or some of the key areas, right? So don't try to go nuts and say, oh God, there's hundreds of stars here and trying to reproduce hundreds of stars. Temper it with a little bit of realism. So, basically just capture enough till it looks good. Periodically, you look at the image, you look at the image, you look at what you sketch, you say, hey, that looks good enough, right? Again, we're not trying to be perfect. We're not doing scientific observations here, and we're not artists, right? So you don't need every star. So don't kind of go nuts. So you can even try it here with a double star, right? I didn't give everybody pens. I don't know if I have enough pens for everybody. Double star is really, really easy, right? So you could actually just draw, this is Alberio and Cygnus. Of course, this particular one was done in color. Most people don't sketch in color. They sketch in black and white because that's what you see through the telescope. But you can see here that he basically just sketched the two dots, right? That's pretty easy to do, right? So there are some templates, and I don't know if I brought one, which I didn't, and I apologize. There are templates you can get, and I can give people copies of those if they need them. For double stars, if you want to calculate the position angle, or basically when you look at the separation, it's what's the angle of the line of separation of the stars, right? So based on your east-west line in your telescope, there are some overlays you can put over the top of your sketch to get the position of. If anybody's interested in that, I've got the templates for that for the various types of telescopes, so I can give that to you. But it's pretty easy to do, right? So if you're going to do something like that, you start here with your blank spot, and then the first thing I would probably draw in is the big one, right? And I would draw something in like that, and then I know it's kind of hard. I probably should have, I don't know if we have a camera. I can't really, we'll see if we'll see some of the other stuff. If we can maybe do an example. And then I would draw in the other one, with kind of the same relative size, right? Or not the same relative size, but the size that's relative to their brightness, right? And again, you don't have to be perfect here, right? Just get close, right? Try to reproduce what you see, right? So, and that's not so hard, right? Anybody can do that, right? So sketching, that's really easy. When you look at the Double Star Club, which is a fun club, and I would recommend for people to do. The Double Star Club at the for the Astronomical League, it's like the Lunar Club. Both the Lunar Club and the Double Star Club are kind of fun because you can do them from your driveway no matter where you live. As long as you don't, don't live, maybe not in downtown Manhattan, but for a lot of the suburban neighborhoods we live in, most of the Double Star Club you can see from your driveway, even if you've got fairly heavy light pollution. So it's a great thing to do on it when you have a reasonably clear night, but you don't want to go to a dark sky site and you want to do something, do the Double Star Club or the Lunar Club. Again, whenever the moon's up, you can do observe. So we recommend that. Let's see. Again, lots of stars. So how do you do lots of stars? So that's easy. Double stars are easy, right? So the trick for lots of stars, and this is the trick I use, and it took me a while to get this, is pick a place to begin. And it doesn't really matter where it is. I usually try to start somewhere near the center of the image, but you don't have to, right? Pick a place to begin that looks likely to you, right? So say, I'm just going to pick this place to begin. And then follow patterns that you see. And this is probably the most important part of the technique or whatever. I don't know if the technique has a name or just out of my feverish brain. But different people see different patterns, right? If you look at a whole bunch of stars in an eyepiece, certain patterns will pop out to you. Some people just seem to naturally see in squares, right? So if that, just start following in squares. I personally see in triangles. So I see groups of 3 stars in triangles. They jump right out at me. So I use that. Some people use trails or lines of stars. Whatever pops out to your brain, because everybody's brain works a little bit differently, right? Use that. And then just fill in from there. And you might want to work, if it's really complicated, like say you have an object in the center, maybe that you're drawing and there's a bunch of stars around it. You may want to work in sections, like kind of do like the bottom section and then do the next section on the right-hand side, then do the top section, then do the left, right? Just, it may want to do that, right? And just fill in from there. Let's actually look at this from this particular picture here. So, and I apologize to the people on the recording because you're not going to be able to see me pointing to things in the room. What you're going to want to do is, let's see if I can use my mouse. So like I see in triangles. So what I would do if I had to draw this is I would start with this one, and this one. These 3 bright ones. Again, I just see in triangles. So I would start there. And I would put them in. I put that one near the center. So then I would say, okay, well, this one has a little one right next to it. I put a bright one right next to it. I'd do that. And then I'd probably do, now that I have these 4, I'd probably do this one, and then this one, and then I'd come down and do that one, okay? And then once I have that, I can start drawing more, and I would probably start here, because I see a little triangle here, right? And so I do those 3. And then I'd probably do this triangle here, right? And then I might come out and do this triangle here, and then maybe start adding in some of these other little ones, right? See, here's another little triangle. And again, here's a little triangle. And this just, again, this pops out to my brain. Maybe you like, again, lines or squares or, another thing, whatever kind of pops out to your brain. If you follow this approach, you'd be surprised how easy it is to do even something like this, right? And again, don't worry about it being perfect, right? Again, you'll kind of pick a brightness for the bright stars. And then as you draw in the dimmer stars, just make them a little smaller, right? And it's pretty easy from there, right? And again, just spend a little time doing it, right? You're not trying to set a speed record or do like 55 of these a night, right? You're not going to do like 3 a night. You want to do more than that. But you want to basically go and kind of capture what you see. And you can see that there's some real super faint ones in here you might not include. But you may want to include, right? Again, but you want to capture all the main ones in this open cluster. Like up here. See, here's a square, may pop out to you. if you like squares. Again, here's a square. It might pop out to you if you like squares. Here's kind of a lopsided square if you like that. Or here's like a diamond shape, if diamonds pop out to you. Whatever you look at when you see this. Again, for me, when I look at this, I see a series of triangles.
A question. With the heavy dew, do you do this all in one night, or do you come back and maybe finish it a second night?
Depends. Most of the time I try to do it in one night. For each drawing. I don't spend the whole night on the drawing by any means. But I try to capture it. But if you get the next morning, if you look at it and it's just like, you may want to come back and do it. You may want to leave it on your list and do it again, right? I've had that happen like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning where it just didn't make sense.
Well, I'm not talking about spending a lot of time on the drawing. If the paper gets too wet, you got to stop, right?
You got to stop. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing about keeping it in that clipboard until the very last minute till you're ready to draw. And then if you spend 15, 20 minutes doing the drawing, it's generally good enough. But again, yeah, I mean, if it's horrible dew, it's probably gonna be a problem, right? So, but so that's the trick with lots of stars. And if you follow that approach, I think you'll find it much easier, right? If you like lines, I would go here, here, and probably come down here and follow this. And then you got like this line here. You see how that kind of arcs through there? Again, some people, that's the way, whatever, don't fight your brain, in other words, right? Your brain is gonna lead you in one direction or another, and you can do that here, so. Okay, for some reason. Alrighty. So not wanting to advance. Oh, okay. So I have some little drawings. You can start with this. I start with this triangle here. There's another group. There's another group. And so that's the way. Oh, sorry. So start with that triangle. Again, you go. Here's 3 stars you can draw in. There's a triangle here. There's a little link down here. And you can just do all those various things, right? Here's something you could practice on if you're playing along with the home game, or if you're in the room. You can do that if you want to practice. Anybody want to practice, or just move on? And here's just this because it's just a simple open cluster. Well, I'm not getting a lot of takers here in the room, so I'll move on. So for nebulosity and galaxies, for me, this is the fun stuff. I make no secret of the fact that I prefer looking at things like nebulas and galaxies over double stars and open clusters and things like that. It's just my personal preference. Again, a lot of times you want to start with the object. Sometimes if there's bright stars, like if you're doing M42 in the trapezium, you can start there with the stars, but most of the time, start with the object, right? Like a galaxy. And again, you want to use the blending stump. And then basically, you kind of want to start doing the center of the basic shape, like start at the beginning. Like if you're looking at galaxy, it's probably gonna have a bright core. So put that blending stump to the paper. And you just basically start doing the core of the galaxy. If it's round, it's round. And then what you can do is you can start working your way outward, right? So what you want to do is you want to get the general shape first. So maybe you'll have something that looks like, and this might be a little hard to see on this particular piece of paper in the camera, but maybe you draw something that looks about like, I can get up there. There you go. So maybe you draw something that looks about like that. That's the shape you're seeing, right? And then once you get the basic shape, you can start adding in little details, right? Again, you add the you'll add some more lead and you maybe blend in little details, especially on a nebula. You want to start with the brighter spots, the brighter basic shape, and then all the little thin stuff you can add, right? You can darken it, because the beauty about the blending stumps is it actually goes on fairly light. But if you want to darken it, you got to go over it multiple times. That actually works well because it's hard to make things too dark, right? Like if you want to make things dark, you got to do that. You got to rub it for a little while, which is fine. The thing is that way you can put really fine details or really like faint nebulosity pieces without having to worry about having to use too light a touch, right? And if you want it a bit darker, just go over it again, right? Change the shape a little bit, just rub it a little bit more and spread that lead around, right? So you'd be surprised how easy it is to do, right? I was just kind of drawing something. And again, you say I'm no artist. For those of you that saw it on the camera or in the room, I'm no artist. But you kind of look at what you're looking at and just try to do that. There's a lot of there's people that really go make really super detailed drawings and do things like little tiny pencil erasers and all to like put in like dust lanes or things like that. You can do that. I don't tend to do a lot of that just because I'm not that good at reproducing the image, but I try to get the basic image correct, right? And then what you do, then you can add the stars around it, like the background stars of the galaxy. Once you get the galaxy drawn in, or the nebula or whatever, again, then you can add in any, and again, the background stars, you're just trying to add enough to give it context, right? That's the important thing, right? Just like if you draw globular clusters, there can literally be thousands of stars in that globular clusters. You don't have to get every little one correct, right? Just, you want the basic idea. Like you may want to, for the center part of the globular, you may just want to put down lead, for it, and then just dot in a bunch of little tiny dots inside of it. Just give the idea of what a globular cluster looks like. Again, because you're not trying to be photographic and you're not trying to, make it too much of a science project, right? Not sure why. Okay. But, like here's a couple examples of galaxies, and you can see where the blending stumps really work well here, right? You see the one on the left-hand side, you can see it's got a really bright core. So I would start with that. And then I would kind of work on, you see, other than the bright core, it's got like an inner, maybe a little bit oblong shape, an inner bright area, not as bright as the core. I would put that in. And then I would start working on and it's really hard to see here in the room. Let me try to turn down the lights a little bit. Right. But you can see it's actually got some really faint details. Sorry, the room is a little bright, so I had to turn it down. I think people on the Zoom can probably see it better, but you can see some faint details on the outer parts. And again, I would add those in last, right? So once you have that bright core, which is mostly circular, that's pretty easy, right? And you sort of got this a little bit oblong piece, and then you can draw on those outer details. On the other galaxy, you can see it's a little bit different. It's got like two bright spots, right? It's got a dust lane running through it. So I'll probably draw the two bright spots, and then I would add in the bits around it. And then I would add in the stars in between the galaxies, right? And again, I would just pick the major ones, right? Like I would probably go, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, maybe this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. This one, that one, this one, this one, this one, that one. And then I would take a look at it and see if it looks all right. And if it kind of says, hey, that kind of looks like the galaxies, right? It's like, then it's good enough, right? Again, you may want to do perfect, like science quality images. That's fine too. Spend all night doing one. I don't tend to do that, right? I tend to get good enough, right? So do you want me to pause on this one for a little bit? Yeah, I've got some people in the room drawing it. Hopefully, I don't know if anyone's doing the play at home game, but if you are, you can maybe draw it.
Which galaxy is that?
Actually, I'm not sure. Is that 81 and 82? I actually don't know it. It's been so long since I did this image. Since I did this presentation, I actually don't know.
I know there's one called Scar Galaxy.
It might be, I think I just don't remember which image this is. I'm sure someone will probably correct me after they look at the YouTube video. The beauty of the internet.
Okay.
So again, for globular clusters, like obviously there's a note for me to work on the slide here. You know, I would use the blending stump for the basic shape. So you see, it's so there's like a circular part that's very bright in here. Let me see if I can indicate that. Circular, more or less circular part. And then see how it's got like this kind of soft nebulosity that's almost looks like a you know, like a fuzzy wavy ring around this, right? I would draw in this bright spot, and then I would draw in the wavy stuff around it, all with a blending stump, right? And then I would probably stipple with the pen this stuff, the wavy stuff. And then I would just kind of do some stippling with the pen right here to give you an idea of lots of stars, right? So I think that actually it does a much better job than you might think when you do that. You know, again, you know, if you were to try to draw each of these stars individually, it would probably take you forever, and would require really good seeing as well. All right, so I'm sorry I didn't scan an example into the slides. I do have an example for people in the room to look at here, and I'll show you where you can see some examples of these kind of things. And then definitely you want to touch up in the light of day. You know, so it's not cheating to do this. You know, you capture basically what you see, but again, it's late at night. It may be damp, and then when you get the next day, you may, when you look at it, you go, I was trying to get this effect, I didn't really get it, or I need a little more lead. So go ahead and do that. Touch up in the light of day, right? You know, it's not like if you missed half the stuff, that's not something you want to do in the light of day. But it's okay to kind of touch it up and clean it up, or clean up a line with the eraser or something. You know, go ahead and do that, right? Again, I would also add the object information if you want all that stuff. I usually do. You know, the erasers are really good for touching up the images. Some people actually go as far as redraw the sketch during the daytime. That's not a bad strategy. You may look at it and say, I can do a better job, and just redraw what you draw from the original sketch and draw it again. Some people do that. I don't usually do it, but that's okay. If you want to do that, again, depends how much again, you know, this is a hobby for fun. So, you know, you don't want to turn it into a job. But if you want to spend time on it, you shouldn't feel bad about spending time on something. So, all right. So always compare to the picture of the object, right? It wouldn't be the first time I got something wrong, especially if you're doing something like when I did the Herschel 400s. There's some, some pretty, you know, there's a whole bunch of different galaxies in there and everything. There's a, you know, it's one thing if you're doing the Messier objects, generally, you know exactly what you're looking for, but some of the Herschel 400s or some of those things have some small, faint galaxies or some, you know, some small open clusters you may have got right or you may have got wrong. So always compare it to a picture of the object, because you may say, oh, hey, I think I was sketching the wrong thing. So always do that, right? Just to make sure, right? I actually usually carry, I used to carry the books by the Will Bell books, William Bell publishers, that had all the pictures, the night sky observer guides, so to make sure I caught the right objects. Nowadays, you can use computers to do that with a lot of the things, like a lot of them have the ability to have pictures embedded in the Star Atlas programs. I really recommend getting one of those that does have the ability to show you pictures, because it's nice to be able to actually see what you should be seeing, right? Just know if you're the right one, right? Like if it's a edge-on spiral and you're seeing just an, you know, like an elliptical galaxy, you know you're on the wrong one. So you can get really fancy if you want. I actually don't, but you can. a lot of people, once they get their sketch, and you can see, I'm sorry I didn't credit the person, I need to do that, who did this. You look at the upper right, this is a sketch someone did of an open cluster. They wrote just a little bit of information, that's fine. But a lot of people that do a lot of sketching will actually take that, and scanners, you have the all-in-one office computers and all-in-one office printers now that have scanners. They'll actually scan the image and they'll invert the colors, so they get the image on the bottom. So it actually looks like a more true-to-life image. It's a cool effect. I didn't do it with any of mine, but it's still a very cool effect, right? You want to be careful. If you do this, you need good scanning software or image processing program. A lot of the built-in image or scanning programs that you buy with your kit, like if you buy HP or Epson, the ones that come with it are not very sensitive or good for this sort of thing. There are people that sell scanning programs that are much better at this. So you probably need to get a good one. There's probably some open source ones now too. I'll be honest with you, I haven't looked recently. Also, you could just scan in using the basic software, and if you have a good image processing program where you can adjust, the dark point, the white point, the gamma, and the curves, you can probably do that if you really want to get into it. I mean, you can get into it as much as you want. Again, I don't particularly do this, but a lot of people do, and it is a very cool effect. Other than if you're going to print them out on an inkjet printer, you can see that you better invest in black inkjet cartridges because you will use a lot of them. So again, you just that invert gives such a nice look. Here's a few of mine. Again, I'm no artist, but you can see. And again, remember, a lot of these were done very late at night, and some of them were done when the temperature is like 15 degrees. With gloves on. So you got to take that into account. But these are some of mine. And you can see one of the galaxies. Again, I probably should put which one it was. I'll have to go back and look at that. I should know with that really bright star at the bottom of that image what that one is. But you can see these are just some of the ones that I did. All right. Here's now who recognizes what this one is? Hopefully someone recognizes it, or I'm a really bad artist, worse than I thought. Anybody on the web, on the Zoom, want to take a guess at what these two objects are? No takers? Tom, I think you're on mute.
Probably the veil.
Oh, so I'm not as bad an artist as I thought. Thanks, Brian.
Sure.
Yeah, this is the Veil Nebula that I did, and you can see here I kind of try to get the shape and the background stars, and you can see, like, especially on the right-hand image, there's a bright star right there in the center. So I'd probably do that first, and then just drew the shape off of that, right? And the fact is, you can see I'm not the world's greatest artist, which is probably why they said probably the Veil. But it still gives you an idea. Again, gives you a pretty good idea. But again, one thing, a side effect of this, or benefit of this, is that you actually spend a lot of time looking at the object and you see a lot of little details. If you have talent, and this is something from one of the club members, the Raleigh Astronomy Club, who actually learned a lot of things from, but he's much better than I am. So Jimmy Anderson, basically, if you look at some examples, I like the one on the right-hand side. I'm sorry, the right-hand side, the Messier 42 and 43. This is not a picture, this is a sketch. This one's actually by Jeremy Perez. I'm sorry, the Jimmy Anderson one's on the left-hand side. But if you look at the one on the right-hand side, that's all just sketching with exactly the tools that I've talked about.
Ian,
This is, yes.
I see some color in that, so you can use different color, like chalk or something, to get the different colors that he got in there, or is it all done with the pen?
It's all pretty much grayscale.
Grayscale.
If it's green, was my scanner, or yeah, it doesn't really look very green on some of the screens we have here, so I'll have to figure out why that looks greenish. You're right, it's got a greenish tint, but that's, I think, an artifact, a digital artifact, rather than the image itself, right?
Okay, now, last question on this, is it all done grayscale, or can you get different type of, color, like pencils, if you want to try to catch, like if you got blue star, yellow star?
Well, that's a great question, and you can. A lot of people do sketch with different colors. I really have no experience with it, but yeah, you could. Any artist supply store, you can get things like that. People sketch with all kinds of different colors. I just do in black and white because most of the stuff you see is black and white. And if there's something obvious colored, like a blue star or something, or a red star, I'll just note it in my notes, right? But again, the beauty is you make it what you want it to be. Here's another really good example that, unfortunately, I'm sorry, I didn't credit this one either. I'll have to go back and do that. This is obviously from the moon, right? And this is someone who has a lot more talent than I did. But again, they're basically using the same tools to create this type of examples. Speaking of color imaging or color drawing, you can draw in color. Here's an amazing example of some planetary ones. Again, this is not me at all. And this is all drawn, these are all sketches drawn by hand. And you can see that someone spent a lot of time working on this and did a really fantastic job. And this is just really amazing work. There's actually, if you go on the Astronomical League, you'll see they actually have a sketching webpage with a lot of sketching resources. They'll talk to you about some various techniques for learning how to sketch, again, by real artists. They have there's various techniques to learn how to sketch. There's also some really good examples. There's something called the Astronomical Sketch of the Day, which for about 10 years, there was this website that posted, like the NASA APOD, the astronomy picture of the day. There's one that posted just sketches. They stopped in 2015 for technical and personal reasons, but the archive is still up there, and they have a couple thousand sketches, and they're pretty amazing. So you can kind of look at there to get some ideas. In fact, maybe we can even pull that up here. If everybody will bear with me just a second here. Oh, that's the wrong search bar. What is happening here? Oh, that's because I'm on the wrong keyboard. Sorry, I'm in a room with multiple computers. So there are sketching resources for the Astronomical League, which we're affiliated with. And you can see there's a whole bunch of things like introductions and different techniques. There's like a video series from people who are far more accomplished than I am, with different techniques. The Mellish technique and other things. So there is the astronomy sketch of the day. And there's also, if you're interested, the Cloudy Nights has a sketching forum, which is actually, I think it's still active. So here's the astronomy sketch of the day. And again, I'll go back through some of the ones. Let's see, let's find some of the deep sky ones that are a little easier to see. See, here's one of the ones that when I commented about filling of not using too fine or too big or too small magnification. Here's an example. I'm sure this it's a very technically excellent sketch, but one of the things is it's kind of very small in the center. I probably would use more magnification. Again, just because it pleases me to do that. So if you'll just bear with me while I there's a lot of moon sketches. Bear with me while I page through a couple things here. One that actually shows up pretty well. Lots of moon sketches. Here's a good one. So here's M13. You kind of see here's you can see the way that this person did it. Again, they probably put in the blending stump right there and kind of laid that down pretty heavy. And then they did that part right there. And then you see what I'm talking about, stippling the pen, sticking a bunch of them in there, right? And then they probably do these outer stars, right? Let's see what else you've got. Craters. This is actually a really good 4565, which that may have been one image I had up there too. This is the better one. The neat thing about this is it's got this dust lane right into the middle, right? But you can see it. You can see how they kind of just drew in the shape here, and then just let it taper off, and taper off, and get thinner, right? And then they just captured some of the stars around it, right? Now, this person actually went back and actually drew like a little magnitude chart, a little legend. I don't actually do that. That's actually a cool little touch. So to actually do that, again, depends what you want to do with it, right? There's a comet. We'll just look at one more page. Some of these don't show up very well on the screen, so I'll just have to. That's kind of a neat little thing, a bunch of different small asterisms. You see, these actually look pretty cool, even though they didn't put a lot of stars in, right? And this is actually that's probably the best example of this, right? Is he just put in the main asterisms and maybe a couple background stars, and it actually looks really good, right? So whoever did this didn't go nuts. Well, Victor, so he didn't go nuts. Just try to give you a sense of what it is, right? So you'd be surprised, like you don't really have to, reproduce photographic quality, right? Again, I can't really talk too much about sketching lunar craters since I've never really done it. And well, if anybody's really interested in learning how to do that, there's a couple of really good videos on YouTube on how to do that. And I never really have gotten into it, so I can't really talk about experience. There's another simple sketch that really captures it, right? You see, this person actually spends a lot of time kind of making a cool artistic sketch for him, right? So probably what they do in these kind of cases is they have this template and they actually sketch it on a piece of paper. They scan it, invert the color, and then add it into the template, right? Some people do this. Again, I don't. I leave mine just in the raw form. But again, it's what you really want to do, right? So I'm going to stop sharing the screen. I guess, does anybody have any questions that they didn't already ask? No? Okay. Well, that's all I had prepared for tonight. I just want to, again, encourage people to sketch when you're out. I mean, sometimes it's nice. I do astro imaging, but sometimes I also bring a small mount that I can just look at things. I'm going to be running a long imaging run somewhere, instead of just looking at the screen, the computer screen, I tend to do a little visual observing, and sketching is a great way to pass the time doing that. I know several people in here are sketching the constellations for the Constellation Hunter Club. You don't even need a telescope for that. You can just kick back in a chair and sketch the bright stars, and that's actually a lot of fun. So, I see nodding heads for Gerald, who's doing this right now. So it's a lot of fun doing that. So And again, doesn't cost much to get into it. Nothing like imaging, and no expensive software. And you can just kick back, and sometimes even when you just take a break from using your telescope when you're out, if you've been out for a couple hours, take a break, sit in a chair a little, and just draw a quick little sketch of something. You'd be surprised how relaxing it really is. So I would encourage everybody to try it. So,
Ian, I do have a question for you.
sure.
When you've done your sketching, have you ever had a camera set up also to where you can maybe to go, take an image with a camera to go back and do, just verify how your sketch look, or you just try to get it all from memory?
I didn't, because I really wasn't doing a lot of imaging at that time. I was one of the holdouts on sketching for a long time, even in the early imaging days. So I just focused on sketching to work on a bunch of the Astronomical League observing clubs. And I just really enjoyed it. I found it very relaxing. So I just kind of was a holdout there. I haven't thought about doing that. I guess you could take a picture of it and actually sketch. But I hadn't thought about it, but certainly you could do that if you want. So,
especially if you could take an images with a cell phone like Jay is.
yeah, I mean, that's actually probably for doing the constellation hunter. That's actually probably a really good idea, because sometimes it's hard to see the stars. And again, I don't know about everybody else, but I get pretty fuzzy about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So it's I can tend to make mistakes.
By that time, I'm already in bed.
So I mean, I can stay awake. I'm pretty good at staying awake, but I do start losing a lot of focus, especially on days, especially with the school day when I have to get up and go to work early. So it's that's actually a really interesting idea. I hadn't thought about it. I'm sure there are plenty of people that do it. Again, if you're interested, again, you can look at the Cloudy Nights forum, and things like that, because there's a lot of people that still do a lot of sketching. And you can look at the resources on the Astronomical League, because there's a lot of really good ideas. And there's some really good YouTube videos, like drawing lunar craters. I saw one the other day that was really good by a professional artist who showed you how easy it was to actually kind of get that like shadow effect and everything. It's not as hard as you might think. I did include it here because I'm not that good at it. I haven't had experience doing it. So, but if you're interested in doing that kind of thing, you could, look up this, like I said, there's really good YouTube videos by people that have a lot of practical experience doing that. So it's just a different aspect of the hobby. You kind of pick and choose what you want to do. If you want to do astrophotography, that works as well. And some people just wanted to be the astrotourist and just look at things, right? So if you want to be just an astrotourist, that's great too. The thing is, this isn't a job. We do this. I'm sure some of us would love to get paid just for being an amateur astronomer, but most of us don't. You do what makes you happy, and what you enjoy. So. All right, well, that's it for tonight's presentation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to end the live stream, and then anybody that wants to talk about anything else, club-wise, we can talk about that. So I think everybody's watching the live stream. So let me go ahead and stop the live stream.
Okay,